Welcome to Front Office Pros. I'm Steve, and this is Joe. Believe it or not, we're already on day 3 of the free agency frenzy. It's starting to wind down a little bit, but that doesn't mean that there were some big names and some big releases. We could talk about that towards the end of the show, Joe. Some surprising names, or really they weren't all that surprising if you were tracking, but if you weren't tracking, there were some headliners there, so we'll be able to talk about them as well. But there were some interesting players that did get signed. So this will be very interesting to get your reaction as we talk about this, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like you said, hard to believe it's already day 3. You know, all the anticipation of this going on and the excitement of day 1 and already on to day 3, heading into day 4 here. Crazy.
So Mason Rudolph signed a 1-year deal to go to the Tennessee Titans. Joe Flacco signed a 1-year deal to go to the Indianapolis Colts. So there has been a quarterback carousel. The backup quarterback, more and more we're seeing a emphasis being put on that position. It seems more and more. I don't know. Do you feel that way? Because I feel like the focus is squarely on these guys.
Yeah, I think it largely, has a part in how many starting quarterbacks we saw go down last year. I mean, look at how many teams needed their backup quarterbacks, to really perform well. And interesting enough, the Colts are one of those teams. Richardson goes down pretty early in the season, and Gardner Minshew came in. Colts were nearly a playoff team. Obviously Browns had their quarterback issues and the injuries as well. Flacco came over and got them to the playoffs too. So I think just a lot of reaction from last year with how many injuries there was at the starting quarterback, and just showed teams that they needed a viable starter.
Yeah, Joe Flacco going to the Colts is interesting because Richardson's going to be recovering. Obviously, we saw what Gardner Minshew did with the Colts, almost led them to the playoffs. Obviously, we saw what Flacco did. So, I guess of all the places that Flacco could go, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, Minshew moving on, and Colts felt like needed a backup. Flacco played pretty well. I think he wanted to go back to Cleveland. Cleveland went with Jameis Winston, so he found a new home with the Colts.
So let's talk about the biggest deal of the day, which was wide receiver Calvin Ridley signing with the Tennessee Titans, which was quite the stunner for me. I don't know if it was a stunner for you, Joe. I was not anticipating that. 4 years, a whopping $92 million. That's a $23 million on average contract, and that's $50 million guaranteed, Joe. I mean, that is absolutely mammoth for Calvin Ridley.
It really is, and I was really like you. I was really surprised the fact that the Titans kind of came out of nowhere. I feel like we had heard about the Patriots. Obviously, to me, I thought he was going back to Jacksonville, especially with the implications of what pick they'd have to give up to Atlanta if he waited till after the 4 p.m. deadline. So I figured it was just kind of waiting for that 4 p.m. deadline so he goes back to the Jags, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, Tennessee Titans swoop in and steal him away and pay him a boatload of money. And I've seen everyone else's reaction, just surprising that they were willing to give Calvin Ridley this money, but yet, they traded away AJ Brown instead of paying him.
Yeah, they haven't really. I would think for the Titans. Hold on. Let me make a comment about what you just said. My mind's racing in a couple directions. It is a different GM.
Right.
Let's not forget that.
It is a new regime, correct.
Right. But, it was Robinson was the GM before. Now it's Rand Carthon. Had Rand Carthon been the GM, maybe he does sign. So I don't feel like that's fair to the Titans because, in my view, I think that you can't take that into account. Rome says, great to see you guys live. Always a great listen. Well, thank you, Rome. We appreciate it. We love talking about the free agency. So thanks for joining in. And Toronto Dave also is in there saying hello. So thank you guys for joining. And if you have comments or your thoughts, we'd love to hear your thoughts as we go through this.
Absolutely.
But I think with Ridley, I mean, we're going to be talking about winners and losers. To me, Treylon Burks, to me, he's going to be an afterthought in this offense. I don't really know what to think of this offense. I guess Will Levis has all the opportunities to be something. He's got Tony Pollard. He's got Tyjae Spears. He's got Calvin Ridley now. He's got DeAndre Hopkins. He's got Burks. He's got Kyle Phillips. He's got Chigoziem Okonkwo. To me, the Ridley signing the Titans doesn't make a lot of sense because I don't think the Titans are contenders. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, clearly Calvin Ridley is just chasing the bag to me. I mean, I thought he'd want to go somewhere, at least be a part of a playoff team. And if he would have stayed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think they have the opportunity with Trevor Lawrence if he's able to improve. You know, they need to make some improvements in that secondary that they have on defense, but at least, you know, they're a lot closer to being fantasy relevant to me than the Titans are. So this was just him chasing the bag to me.
Well, and look at the aftermath for the Jaguars too.
Yeah.
I mean, they were trying to keep him and then have Gabe Davis and Christian Kirk. Now Gabe Davis replaces Calvin Ridley. I don't know. It's not really a good look for the Jaguars.
No, but I think they could. I think they're still okay. I mean, as far as I know, Zay Jones is still on the roster as well. So, you know, and the thing of it was, you know, Calvin Ridley had a lot of drops with them, and him and Lawrence, like he was mostly fantasy relevant when Zay Jones was out there. Once Zay Jones went down, he couldn't stand alone on the outside. And I think Gabe Davis at least has a better chance of being that standalone. He's a bigger guy, being that standalone outside receiver opposite of Kirk.
I guess I just, in my view, I think that Ridley, he was a disappointment in Jacksonville. I think
Yeah.
you and I would agree with that. I really can't comprehend that he got this amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what like you said, from fantasy perspective, I don't know what to think with him going to Will Levis. Obviously, you know that I'm not that high in Will Levis.
No, you're not. I know you're not.
Going into that offense, you know, maybe Callahan can scheme things up there for them, and Will Levis takes a step forward. You know, because not that they had the best coaches around him his rookie year, so maybe with an offensive minded head coach, he can take the next step, but that's still yet to be seen.
This whole Titans organizational philosophy is so strange.
It really
Because
is.
obviously, you and I both felt like Mike Vrabel was not worthy of being, given the axe. But man, Titans had a lot of cap space, and they've been.
Oh no. Yeah, Steve's been struggling with his Wi-Fi connection all night here. This is not good.
All right, I'm back. Some technical difficulties. Internet cut out. We've been dealing with these problems all night. Hopefully, you were entertaining the folks.
Not really. I was trying to figure out how we pause this thing until you get back here.
All right. Well, thanks for the 36 of you who decided to keep around here.
Well,
But
that was the thing, man. You cut out and our viewer count's rising here. So
what does that
glad
say
to have you
about
back.
me? What does it say about me? So okay. So what were we talking about? We're talking about Mike Vrabel, right? We didn't think that I didn't believe that he was worthy of being, let go. I know you didn't think so either. And then now they got Brian Callahan coming. I guess Callahan wants to make sure he has a heavy loaded offense.
Yeah, definitely. But I guess NFL kind of made a statement by Mike Vrabel not getting another job either in this coaching cycle. I'm really interested to see what Callahan's vision is for the team and ultimately how the things with the Titans are going to play out this season.
Go ahead and put in your comments below what your thoughts as far as Calvin Ridley goes. Are you excited about the landing spot? Are you kind of nervous about it? How does it impact the team? Curious your thoughts. Let's go to some of the other players, Joe, unless you have anything else you want to say about Mr. Ridley.
No, nothing to add. We can certainly move on here.
I will say one thing. I give him a lot of credit, being suspended for a year and then coming back and doing what he was able to do and then secure this amount of money. That was quite the feat. I thought his career might have been over after a year-long suspension.
Yeah, that is a good point and a good perspective to have, and good for him to perform well enough to secure the bag this year after being suspended.
So we have Malik Collins. He got traded to the San Francisco 49ers, and then Sheldon Rankins. He signed a 2-year deal with the Cincinnati Bengals. Either of these guys interest you, Joe?
So you didn't want to talk about the Bills getting Matt Collins?
Oh, I totally missed it. What do you think about? I guess to me, I'm not excited about that.
I can tell.
Well, I just think if he's a Trent Sherfield replacement on a 1-year deal, that's fine. Obviously, he did really well with Derek Carr in Vegas. He was an afterthought in Atlanta. But I mean, it was Arthur Smith and it was Desmond Ridder, so I'm not all that concerned.
Exactly, yeah.
He's a big-bodied guy. He can run block. He's played special teams. I mean, do you think I should like it more than I am?
I think he potentially is like – I think he's what they wanted Gabe Davis to be potentially, that big-bodied guy who can go down the field and stay on the outside. Trent Sherfield was used a lot in like the slot, and Matt Collins is a guy that's outside opposite of Stephon Diggs. So I feel like it gives Josh Allen a big weapon that they really haven't had that he can kind of lob the ball up to and let Collins go make a play. I mean, it's not the most exciting name in the world for sure. I think the Bills will further address this position in the draft because we know how deep it is at the wide receiver room.
They need to.
Yeah, but I mean, for getting a veteran on a 1-year deal as cheap as they have him, I mean, Matt Collins could be interesting.
All right, so how about Malik Collins and Sheldon Rankins? What are your thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, I think, interesting. Both of these guys are former Houston Texans at this point here. Sheldon Rankins, I think that was a good ad for the Bengals. He was actually, to my surprise, performed really well for the Texans. He made himself known when you watched the game. He really stood out to me.
Yeah, he really did. And Malik Collins is a more, I think, under the radar guy. Came from Dallas, went over to Houston, went ahead and traded him for a 7th-round pick. So that'll be an interesting fit for the 49ers who, they lost, their defensive tackle depth outside Javon Hargrave. They've got Hargrave, but they lost Javon Kinlaw, who played, a lot of snaps, and they released Eric Armstead. So, right. Malik Collins is going to probably be a starter for them.
Yeah, I'd agree. He's curious to see how he does and how he fills in there, but I think he'll absolutely get an opportunity to start.
I do like Sheldon Rankins, so like you said, he's just been a guy. He's never really lived up to the billing of where he was drafted. I believe he was a 1st-round pick, but he's a guy who still has some juice left, and I think it could be a good fit for the Bengals.
Yeah, especially if it's looking like the Bengals could lose DJ Reader, so.
That almost tells you that they're not going to get Reader back, honestly.
I think so, and I think Rankins is a pretty good replacement for him.
All right, so going over to other signings here, Joe. Bobby Wagner went to the Washington Commanders, and Eric Kendricks did like a non-psych to the San Francisco 49ers, ended up going to the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys finally got on the board with a linebacker. What are your thoughts on these older linebackers signing in the NFC East?
Yeah, it's interesting. Washington staying aggressive here, securing Bobby Wagner and adding another guy to that linebacker room. I like that fit. I think him and Dan playing with Dan Quinn's going to work pretty well there. So I like the landing spot for Bobby Wagner. Really, surprised the Seahawks didn't want him back and figure out how to just keep that guy a Seattle Seahawk. I'm a little disappointed in that, but from an IDP perspective, I mean, I really like him going to the Commanders. And Eric Kendricks, yeah, like you said, interesting, really reports come out. He's with the 49ers, and all of a sudden, nope. Cowboys finally get on the board and get somebody in for agency. They really needed a linebacker. The guys that they had, I've mentioned it before, they were just really small, got pushed around in the run game. So having a bona fide linebacker like him should really help there.
Yeah, I agree with Richard Sherman. He came out and I think he said recently they talked about how they talk about loyalty, like the player isn't loyal to the franchise, but the franchises aren't all that loyal to the player. I mean, there's really no reason. Bobby Wagner played at an all-time level at his age, especially. Why wouldn't you bring him back? He lost Jordan Brooks too. I mean, what do you really have?
Yeah, I mean, they let him go once and then bring him back, and he had a really great year. And like you said, at his age, so it's not a performance thing. I don't know why they wouldn't want to have him back. And he's a great leader to have on that team and on that defense. But that's the value he's going to bring to the Commanders.
As far as Eric Kendricks goes, I'm a little surprised he elected to go to the Cowboys instead of the 49ers. He could have reunited with his former head coach and Brandon Staley. And the other piece of it is, to me, it's like, Dre Greenlaw is going to be out with an Achilles. So you get to play next to Fred Warner. In this scenario, I guess he becomes the preemptive starter, right? I mean, who else does he really competing against? I think they still have Leighton Vander Esch, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
I'm trying. Are there any linebackers off the top of your head that you could think of that could really contend with Kendricks to be the starter?
I mean, if they actually put Micah Parsons at linebacker, but that, to me, that's about it.
No, and they drafted that linebacker out of Texas. His is escaping me, but he was a third-round pick last year. Never really was able to see the field. And then they also have Damone Clark, former linebacker of LSU. He had some snaps as well. But there's nobody out in there that you could say is definitely going to have a starting job. So he probably will be the starter.
Yeah, I would. I mean, maybe that's ultimately why he chose to go to the Cowboys at this point, just knowing that he's absolutely going to start. I know Greenlaw's out, but I mean, once Greenlaw would come back, he would take over that role.
Overshawn, that's not his name.
Yes. Yep.
Overshawn.
I knew the linebacker you were referring to, but like you, the name was also escaping me.
Yeah. Looks like I got Calvin Ridley a second time here. But you got he was such a big name. I feel like I had to say him twice.
So yeah, Travis Kelce style, so good. You got to have it twice.
I know. That's right. Dane Jackson went to the Carolina Panthers. Rayshawn Jenkins went to the Seattle Seahawks, and Jordan Whitehead went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know you're a Jenkins fan. That signing is probably of interest to you.
Yeah, I think it's a good landing spot for him. I think he'll be playing alongside of Julian Love there in Seattle. I think they'll be a good pairing. Yeah, Rayshawn Jenkins. I think the Jags, had a clear space. He's an older guy at the safety position, but this guy's still been productive, and I think he would still continue to be productive with the Seahawks now.
Yeah, he replaces Jamal Adams, who really wasn't doing much there anyways.
Right.
So he now becomes a safety next to Julian Love. So I think that's going to be an interesting.
Well, they also got rid of Quandre Diggs too.
So. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, he'll probably do well in Seattle. I'm sure. I'd say that's a good fit next to Julian Love. I think who I meant to put in there instead of Calvin Ridley was Harrison Smith. He re-signs back with the Minnesota Vikings. That was kind of a surprise to see. I didn't know if the team wanted him back, but that's a team that's being loyal to its player.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Interesting. I think, they had some younger options, that were really playing well. Harrison Smith's, his play last year, especially from an IDP standpoint, wasn't what it had been in the past. Seemed like he was getting phased out there, but interesting enough, I think he's, as we talked about with Bobby Wagner and the Seahawks. I mean, this guy's got to be a leader of that defense at this point, and they decided to just make him stay with the Vikings and stay loyal to him, like you said.
So as far as that's all the signings we had.
Oh boy. Well, seems like Steve's running into those technical difficulties once again here. But as Steve was saying there, this is going to wrap up our day 3 of the free agency reaction videos. Thank you for the 50 people we've got watching here. Thank you for your continued support. And we'll keep putting out videos on free agency the rest of the week. And then we'll be talking about free agency winners and losers next week. Won't want to miss it. And until next time.